Hi, my relatives. On today's episode of Our Storytellers, we're joined by Talaysay Campo. Talaysay is an entrepreneur, a keynote speaker, a leader. She's so many different things and has so many amazing, great projects that she uses to really just improve the values of everybody's life. I think a couple of things that I really enjoyed talking to Talaysay about on today's podcast was health and wellness, finances, purchasing real estate. There's so many different areas of expertise that she has, and I really enjoyed learning her life story as well too. So a couple of different things that I think you should definitely check out is that her and her family have a tourism and education company called Talaysay Tours. 100% check that out. The link is in the description of wherever you're accessing this. She's also the CEO and leader of Love the Land Apparel, which has great Indigenous designs from local Indigenous designers to the area. So check that out. She gave me a full jumpsuit, and it honestly slaps. And I love wearing the sweater. I haven't worn the full thing out yet just because it's been too warm. But when winter does come around, you best bet I'll be wearing Love the Land Apparel. So definitely jump down there. Check those two out. She also has her own skin serum as well too. I haven't checked that out yet, but the reviews are raving. So also keep that in mind for whenever you're buying some serum next. So without further ado, let's just get into the conversation. Talaysay, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And here is Talaysay Campo. Hello, my relatives. How are you? Here at Our Storytellers, we care about your spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical well-being, which is why we want to inform you that this podcast discusses topics that may cause trauma to listeners and viewers. These subjects include mentions of Indian residential schools, assimilation, ongoing harm, colonial impacts, and much more. Our Storytellers recognizes the need to minimize the risks associated with traumatic subject matter. The Hope for Wellness helpline offers immediate help to all Indigenous people across Canada. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to offer immediate support and crisis intervention. Services are available in English and French and in Nehiyaw, Anishinaabe and Inuktitut upon request. If you or someone you know are experiencing any harm, no matter how big or small it's perceived to be, you can call the toll-free helpline at 1-855-242-3310 or connect to the online chat at www.hopeforwellness.ca. Kinanaskaman, I'm grateful for you. Your ancestors are always with you. All my relations, Riel. Boom. Headphone up. Ready?
Okay.
Let's take a look. Let's pull this in.
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Testing. And yeah, as long as you can pretty much hear yourself, we're good to go.
Yeah, loud and clear.
Talaysay, welcome to Our Storytellers. We did it.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me.
Two cancellations, but you know what?
We're here.
We got it done. And I would like to start by opening up the podcast first and foremost by just introducing myself. Like, my name is Riel. My mom is Yvonne Weiss. My dad's Ken Drury. I'm actually Métis from Red River, Manitoba originally, but my mom is from Squamish Nation. I've been part of the family since I was 11. I am so grateful to have you in my home today just to hang out for a little bit. And this is an offering and protocol just to open up the podcast in a good way and just to create that friendship between your family and my family. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pass this over to you. And when I do, please introduce yourself in your own way.
Hoichika, thank you for this beautiful gift. Hello, my name is Talaysay Campo. I am from the Squamish and the Sechelt Nation. I was raised on the Sunshine Coast as a little girl and then later moved to Vancouver to focus on my work and education. My mother is Candice Campo. She is the owner of Talaysay Tours, and my father is Larry Campo. He owns his own construction site. He also works with the nation a lot with the Shaker Church here. Yeah, I'm very grateful for being here. Thank you, Real.
Sweet. What am I wearing right now? Check this baddie out.
Okay, so I was like, if you give me a gift, I got to give you a gift in return. So I got you, that's Love the Land apparel from our collection, We Are the Land. So it actually has all our Indigenous medicines, not all, but the main factors that we use for our gathering, and we just got them in the back. So yeah, that's a little gift for you, including the deer steaks. Oh. My uncle just ended up hunting those. I got that in yesterday, so that's fresh as could be.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Why? Oh my God, I feel so spoiled right now.
Also, my freezer is like packed right now. Being Indigetarian, I always got to get that produce in. So
let's start there.
All right, let's start. Okay, Indigetarian. How I started that off. So there's a podcast called We for Culture. It's with Tosh Collins and Chelsea Moves. And this podcast was about ancestral foodways. And they spoke about how they lived off the land. They're a husband and wife with 3 children now. They just ended up having another baby last year. And they spoke about how Tosh, he would go hunting monthly. And they're from Arizona. And he would actually get boars every month to feed his family, and they had a natural garden, and they lived off the land, and they barely shopped in the grocery stores. And to live a sustainable lifestyle like that, like hopefully one day when I have my children, I could do that for them. So I started my research right then and there, and I was like, oh, there's no word for this. And I'm like, what can I call myself? Because I've been a vegetarian since I was 4 years old. I remember I sat my parents down at our dinner table, and I was like, I need to speak to you guys. And I told them I don't want to eat anything that has a family. And I was a vegetarian for 20 years. And following forward, when I wanted to change my lifestyle into becoming Indigetarian, is I'm going to eat what my people hunt and gather. And it has changed me mentally, physically, ceremonially, and honestly, I've loved it. Like, I've learned how to cook in so many different ways, and especially from my uncles and my aunties, my mom, my dad. Like, my go-to meal right now is a deer ground, like, taco salad.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's so good. Like, it makes my mouth water just talking about it. But yeah, I've been starting this Indigetarian lifestyle. A lot of our Talaysay Tours guides have transformed into that as well. So yeah, this is just the beginning of it. I want to, like, one day down the road, I would love to do like a cookbook about it.
That's definitely going to happen probably. But tell me a little bit more about how your health changed from like before to now.
Another reason why I wanted to start trying to eat more meat is because I wasn't getting the nutrition I wanted. I have a background. I'm a certified personal trainer, and I was trying to build muscle, but unfortunately it's really hard to build muscle off tofu and beans. So
yeah.
I decided I really wanted to try, and unfortunately the red meats, I still can't eat some red meats, but I could eat like deer and elk right now. So I'm slowly transforming into that. I got to walk before I run. And I started with the deer tacos, like the salad tacos, and I ate that for like 2 months. Like, I'm such a creature of habit. I will eat the same thing every day, and I don't get bored of it. It's just how it is with me, I'm okay with that. So I have such a routine in my day. But that's kind of like how it all started, to be honest, was the podcast, which I highly recommend, Ancestral Foodways. I believe it came out in 2021. I think I've listened to it probably 7 times. Like,
really? Yeah,
it's really inspiring. And Tosh and Chelsea Moves, they are such an inspiring couple to me. Like, I look up to them so much. She's a matriarch in my eyes. They came out with their book about a year ago as well. Yeah, they're a pretty cool couple.
That is so cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, growing up for me, which is kind of cool, is like my dad actually had cancer when I was a little kid, but it was all kind of like food related, essentially. Like, he switched into more of like what I would call an Indigetarian diet, but like he got back into hunting, started going out there hunting moose, getting us deer, and we brought it home. And I remember when I was growing up as a kid, like as a teenager, I'm sorry, Dad, if you listen to this, I'm sorry, but I would be like, oh, we're having like a moose roast again, like so freaking. I was like, I just want like pizza. Can we have like pizza? And looking back, I would be like, I would do anything to go back and like have my dad cook me food, like good, nutritious food. But here's a good recipe for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
Are you a wild rice person? Can you eat wild rice? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna get you some of that too. But
Thank you.
My dad used to have a wild rice company called the Sďwx, which means trading post in our language. But what I love to do is I make a big pot of wild rice or quinoa, and I take like bison, deer meat or whatever, and I just put it all up and I make it into like this beautiful little casserole.
Oh my gosh.
That's a whole week right there.
Oh, that's meal prep at its finest.
Oh yeah. And I'm like you too. I don't get bored with like any of that type of like eating the same thing every day, because I feel like, and tell me if this relates to you, but when you're eating that way, you kind of like gain that energy and you get addicted to that, or you kind of feel like that. I don't know. That's my experience. What about you?
I feel like, to be honest, from being taught from such a young age of like the lays of the land and how creators started, we had the plants and we had the animals come before we ever did, and the way that they took care of our forests and the way they gathered, and like for instance the bear. So when we first arrived on Earth, we actually looked at the bear to see what it gathered and what it hunted in our forest area, because it knew what to eat and what to not. So that's one thing our people did, is we'd actually observe our bears here and see what plants we could eat. They kind of tested it out for us before we followed through. And they're so natural with what they eat. And I know there's no anti-preservatives or anything put into the meats that we have in the stores. And like that's one thing I noticed starting off, because I did start eating chicken from first, and honestly it, like, yes, it filled me, but like at the same time though, I know that there's those preservatives in there. And when it comes to eating elk, deer, bison, that is as fresh as it could be. It's also the ceremony. Like we know that we also use every part of that animal. It is preserved. And definitely for our foodways here for Health Canada, it's not. I did work at the steakhouse for the Keg. I was in the restaurant industry for about 7 years, and I know how it worked. So I saw X, Y, and Z. But that's one thing that really I noticed that I was passionate about when I started becoming an Indigetarian, is like, I know that my uncle went into this land. He made a ceremony. He prayed and thanked that creature for giving his life and feeding our family. And to have that, and to have that purpose, and to know like one day when I have my kids, I could pass on those teachings of what I learned from them to the next generation. I think that's what really feeds my soul.
What's a good story of like a hands-on experience you've had recently?
Oh boy.
Preparing
Okay.
food?
So me and my uncle, we went deer hunting.
Who's your uncle? What's your uncle's name?
His name is John Campbell, from the Sechelt Nation. And geez, okay, so this is when I was just becoming not a vegetarian, and I wanted to come. It was my first hunting experience, and I shot a deer. And for part of our culture, when you shoot a deer, you eat the heart.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of our tradition, and I was terrified. I was like, just because I already had so much adrenaline, but like taking that bite of that heart, I felt a rush of energy radiate throughout my body, and the adrenaline that deer had transferred to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so alive. I had an adrenaline rush myself, but that energy that I had, that it gave to me, it lasted about 4 hours, and then I crashed and I napped for like 2 hours after that. Mm-hmm. And it was the transferring of energy, and that was my first hunting experience. And I was grateful. It was very humbling also, just because that was definitely out of my comfort zone from being at such a young girl and saying I don't want to eat anything that has a family, and then changing my ways of eating because that's what my ancestors did. That was probably like one of the most milestones, I would say, and it's transformed me ever since.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's such a great story. It didn't taste that bad, did it? It actually was pretty good, right?
Really? I don't know. It was, not gonna lie, it was pretty bloody.
The heart.
It was pretty bloody. It was raw, by the way.
Oh, really?
It was right when we hunted it. Like,
okay, I've never had that.
Yeah, we gutted it, and that's when you take it. Like, it wasn't cooked or anything.
Okay, I'm gonna have to try that next time.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. You could, like, I don't know how to describe. Like,
do you eat the whole thing or just the...
No, I just did one bite. That's all I could have done.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, it was a little bite too. So.
Have you ever had deer liver before?
No, not yet.
Really?
I actually would like to try though. It's down the road. Kind of off topic, on topic, but my dog, I put her to a raw diet, and she eats mostly the livers and the organs. And her metabolism has changed so much over that. I could, like, even the way her skin is and her fur, like, it's made such a difference. There's so much more nutrients in the liver, and hopefully one day, baby steps, so I gotta walk before I run for that.
What a spoiled brat.
A little bit, yeah. Honestly, I would say like a dog in their 20s lives the most or a dog with a woman in her 20s, they live the most lavish life. Like, my dog's spoiled. She knows it.
Hi, my relatives. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you have any feedback, please comment on YouTube or submit feedback through Spotify. All of your feedback helps us make this production so much better. So thank you so much. And back to your podcast.
Okay, the wild rice though. So you have that just like stocked in your pantry?
Not stocked in the pantry anymore. It's all in Alberta now. So this is my mom's house, right? Mm-hmm. She moved to Alberta, and like wild rice was like one of the key foods that helped my dad kind of beat that cancer, I would say, or like, I don't know, like, but we get it from like the old suppliers. Wild rice is really hard to harvest. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, they got to harvest it in like boats, and like they ram like the bushes and stuff like that. It shakes off into like an air raft, like,
oh wow.
boat. So it's really expensive to get, but like once you have a good hookup, then you just order pounds and pounds and pounds and give it away and stuff like that. But yeah, the wild rice is the way. What else do I like to eat? I do like deer liver. I love grouse, which is great. Did you hunt? Did your uncle get you a couple of grouse while you're out there too, or you get a couple of grouse?
They actually did hunt a grouse. I remember a vivid memory of when I went hunting with my uncle very young. He was actually babysitting me, and that's what we did. And I stayed in the truck the whole time. I actually didn't go with him because that's when I was still against everything about eating animals. So, but I remember he ended up coming back, and he had 2 grouse in each of his hands, and one of them was like still alive, and he ended up breaking the neck right in front of me.
Oh yeah.
And I was traumatized, and I remember I was crying in the car. But yeah, I haven't had grouse yet, not yet.
Okay. Yeah. No, I love that stuff, but bison's my favorite by far. My goal in life, maybe you and I should do this at a later time, but my goal is to have a farm in Manitoba or Saskatchewan or something like that, like a bison farm.
Wow.
That would be like tier 1. And then like we can just, I would love to like only export to like communities if possible, like if there's like a budget or something like that, they can buy that.
Yeah.
But the other thing I really want to make sure is that they're sung to every single day. You know what I mean? Like really show that respect and do everything in the right way. So
beautiful. Where
we get our food is so important, and I feel like we don't really get the chance to talk about it too much.
Exactly. You really are what you eat, to be honest. Like, I've made that such a big factor. I feel like when I got into food and nutrition, when I became a personal trainer, gosh, how long ago was that? About 8 years ago.
Yeah.
That's when I really started looking into what I ate.
What's your like gym story? Like, how did you kind of connect to that physical side of yourself?
Well, I guess it kind of started when I was young. I've always played sports at a young age. I didn't really have a choice at that time. I'm sorry, Dad, I'm going to call you out for this one. But my dad wanted someone in the family to play hockey and lacrosse. He loved those sports. And unfortunately, my brother vetoed it. He was more into like the BMXing. So when he ended up having his second kid, me, he ended up putting me into hockey. I remember we were playing tyke, and all these girls ended up knowing how to skate the year before. And my dad just put me out there. We went to Canadian Tire, and you could buy like a hockey set in bulk, like the stick and everything. And that's what we did. And he threw me out. And I remember all these girls were just skating circles around me. I was just holding onto the boards for dear life. I ended up playing rep hockey all the way up till UBC. I played for the Thunderbirds, did Team Canada. I made it to the second tier, and then I got cut. But I do miss the sport so much. If I had more time, I would definitely play to have that connection. And then I ended up playing lacrosse until my mom took me out. I think I was 16, because the boys kept on growing and I didn't. They were starting to skyrocket me, and I was super fast. So the one thing is like, if I could run and they can't catch me, I'm good. Yeah. So, but as soon as they started sprouting out, I got some pretty good hits. So yeah, I ended up playing women's lacrosse, I think another year and a half later for Coquitlam, Poco. And then I ended up retiring after that.
Really?
Yeah.
These are my 2 sports. This is Nolan's 2 sports too, which is so funny. But what position did you play in hockey?
Okay, I was left wing, and then I became center because I couldn't stay on one side of the ice. Yeah, so I played center from Pee Wee all the way up. And lacrosse, I pretty much played at honestly any position. I loved any position other than goalie. You have to be a certain breed to be a goalie. But yeah, yeah. Those were like the main sports. I also played ringette, snowboarding. Yeah, and yeah, those are pretty much the sports I played. But I kept myself busy for sure. I played soccer for most of my life as well, and then I chose hockey over it just because I had no time during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So growing up, you're playing sports. Then once you finish at UBC, like what's next? Did you have that kind of like feeling of like, what do I do now kind of thing, or like I'm a little bit lost? I had that feeling.
I did. I really did, because I knew what I wanted to do for business school, but for that summer at business school, you could branch out and go to so many industries. But at that time, I was definitely into I was an athlete, and I knew I always had to move my body. I got my first gym membership when I was 12 at Steve Nash down the street, when it was there, and I'd go with my dad, and we would always go to the gym, and that's when I got into the love of movement. Movement is medicine, and my dad taught me how to use the machines, and then later on I moved on to the dumbbells, and I fell in love with that routine. I would walk to the gym every morning, I'd have my workout, I'd have my steam, and that became such a strategic structure to my daily life. And that's how I fell in love with working out, to be honest. It was a way to like express, get my endorphins out. I also feel like I have this analogy as I played sports at such a young age, and I was always moving my body, and that was also a way for releasing some emotions that I had during that time. And I notice when I do not work out, I get anxiety. I kind of get built up. I suffer with anxiety quite badly. And if I don't move my body, I kind of like sometimes I get in my head a little too much. And I notice when I do, I was like, okay, I gotta go for a walk. I gotta go in the forest or like go to the gym, just to release that. And it works every time, to be honest. I'll be walking out of the gym with a big smile on my face, and I'll be skipping to my car, and it's another day. So that's pretty much how I got into working and moving my body. And when I ended up graduating high school, I gave up my whole summer. I became a personal trainer. I went to British Columbia Personal Training Institute. That was 5 days a week. That was from, I believe, 9 to 4 in Richmond. And I ended up graduating, and then I ended up becoming a personal trainer at Steve Nash. Unfortunately, it didn't last long, to be honest, because that's when I ended up going into business school, and it was really hard to balance my clients in business school at the same time, and obviously school came first. I still have that license, and I could always go back to it.
Yeah.
But one thing that I really love is that I put all that knowledge and education to myself. And it benefited me in these chapters in my life, including my friends and family as well. Like, I always bring my girlfriends to the gym, and I train them, and I surround myself through people who love medicine and movement. My boyfriend's a personal trainer as well, so that's kind of how we met.
Cool.
Yeah.
What for our relatives that are watching this, if say somebody is a little bit nervous to kind of get into the movement medicine, let's call it.
Okay.
What would you recommend for them? Like, what's a good first step?
To be honest, like, always walk before you run. I
Yeah.
remember, like, sometimes when I was, like, first working on the machines, because you have the range of motion, and I want to move the dumbbells, YouTube was a big factor. YouTube has been a game changer in my life. It's taught me about my credit card score, interest rates, how to move my body in certain ways, postures for working out, but that was one way that really helped me. Another way is the way I started moving my body as well, so, like, some days if I didn't want to go to the gym, is just like daily walks. Like, a walk a day could really change your life, to be honest. Like, I go for a walk with my dog every morning, and like sometimes I think I need it more than her.
Yeah.
And like, that's one way I really did start going in. And also just connecting yourself with friends and family that do have that experience. Like, I have some girlfriends that were actually really nervous, and they have we call it gym anxiety, and I've never experienced that. But I have some friends that are like that, and I would try to get them to come to the gym with me, and we would do little workouts, and we would do shadow workout routines. Even like group fitness classes were a big factor. But like, also, if you want to do more community athletic work, is like like with the nation, you could do the North Shore lacrosse team, you could play hockey, you could play soccer at our soccer tournaments here. Like I know we just had the Seabird soccer tournament not too long ago, and those were so fun when I was a kid. My God, I just remember I think we'd play like 4 or 5 games a day in the heat, and then later on we'd go jump in the river and run around in the Harrison Hot Springs Hotel Resort and just goof around. Like that was a big chunk of my childhood.
Oh yeah, totally. I think like I used to work at F45. Have you ever heard of that place?
No, what is that?
It's functional fitness. It's like group class fitness, but it would be 45 minutes. I had to quit because it was too expensive, and I just was like wanted to dedicate more money here. But I find like I relate to you in the way that like without a workout, it's like the anxiety is through the roof, and I'm the same way. You know, like I think like I kind of took it a little bit too far the other way, like towards exhaustion kind of thing. Like I would be like every single morning, 5 a.m, 7 days a week if I possibly could. Like, but what I'm learning for myself at this very moment in time is that rest is also like the other side of that physical medicine. Would you agree?
Yeah, you have to have that time to like let your body recharge and restore. Like if you think about when you're working out, you're restraining your muscle, and when it restrains, you need to have that time for it to build back up to give you your strength back, or else you keep on tearing the muscle. I went through a phase of that myself, to be honest, and I was always sore, and it took such a toll on my body, and then it went mentally. So I always say listen to your body as much as you can. Like if you need a break day, take that break day. And I took that day by day, to be honest, because I remember when I did work out so at such a young age in high school, especially when I was in my modeling career, I was so hard on myself. I wish I wasn't that hard on myself, especially being a teenage girl. Just like I had to be so careful what I ate, being a certain measurement. It was like, honestly, the modeling industry is a cutthroat industry.
Oh, we'll get there.
Yeah, gosh, I got some good stories about that. But like that was one thing that I was really factored on too, is I was always doing cardio, and back then I hated cardio. So so that was like one factor. But definitely breaks are so important for yourself. Like I say, like what works best for me is like probably like working out 4 days a week. 5 maybe at the most, but I mostly take advantage of walks with that, especially with the good weather in the spring, summer. Like this is the time when I usually go in the forest. Right now it's like gathering season. I plan on going up next week with my mom up Squamish Valley. We're gonna go get some Devil's Club, which I'm really excited about.
Heck yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I mean, let's just get into the modeling thing. Let's take it there. How did you get into the modeling? Like what's your first model gig ever?
Gap Kids.
Really?
Yeah, I hated it. I was such a tomboy. That's the one thing. Like most of my cousins on the coast were boys. Yeah. I had a few girl cousins, but not gonna lie, we didn't click as much. I was definitely a tomboy, especially my brother. He was into dirt bikes and everything. It kind of shaped me. He was a big chapter in my life, taking care of me. I remember I was on BC ferries. My mom ended up being a teacher at CapU, so we'd do a lot of transit through BC ferries, and I was eating my pirate pack, and this woman came up to me, and I was 12, just about turning 13, and she's like, "Hey, what's your name?" And I remember I was so rude to this woman. I was like, "Who is this woman?" I was like, "Stranger danger." Yeah. And I was like, "What's your name?" And I was like, kind of like the tone, I was kind of lippy, not gonna lie. And my mom realized that this woman was talking to me, and she was doing a business call, and she ended up coming back, and she's like, "Oh, I'm an agent with Wilmina Agency," which is, back then, it was one of the top agencies here in Vancouver. They're known throughout the world, through New York, LA, Paris. So I was signed with them for about 5 years, and I ended up getting that GAT campaign. And I remember I was so uncomfortable because I didn't know how to model or take photos. And they're like, just be comfortable. And in my photos, you could just tell with my facial expression, I didn't want to be there. But they got some pretty good shots. And the way I got into modeling as well is my mom was definitely like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to put my daughter in this position. I don't know anything about the modeling industry." Like coming from my mom on the Sunshine Coast, that wasn't known. It wasn't. Yeah. We never had that type of opportunity back on the Sunshine Coast. But then my mom saw what the paycheck was, and she's like, "Oh, you're doing it." She's like, "You're paying the bills, Yon Hun." And I was like, "Damn, okay." And I remember I was complaining the whole shoot there. I think it was about a 4 or 5 hour shoot, but yeah, they ended up getting the photos they needed, and then kind of the rest was history after that.
So walk me through like a Gap Kids shoot. So you get there. Is there a bunch of other kids? Are you like playing?
There was like two other kids with me, and we were in Canadian tuxedos for this shoot. I remember.
Oh, let's go.
Yeah. And there was like a creative director, and she was like more chill. She was like trying to make it look like a fun opportunity and shoot that we had going on. But for me, I had like my arms crossed, and I was like, yeah, let's do this and get out of here, Mom. Like,
yeah.
I wasn't having it, but honestly, I remember I was just pretty much dragging my feet that whole shoot. And after then, following forward, after campaign and shoot and all those opportunities, I ended up falling in love with it. It became a creative outlet for me, especially moving to Vancouver. My chapter in my tomboy life kind of faded after high school. I didn't go to Carson Graham like most of the Indigenous kids went to in the community. I wanted to become a professional hockey player at that time, so I went to Sentinel Secondary for their hockey academy, and all those girls were girly girls, so it kind of transformed me, even though I don't think I wanted to be at that time. I still think I'm a tomboy at heart for sure. But yeah, I ended up falling in love with modeling. It was a love-hate relationship, not gonna lie, for a few years, just because I did fight my battles. I went to Milan Fashion Week and I stayed in a model house, and whew, that's like a whole TV show in itself. My gosh. There is a lot of drama in those
Let's
households.
go into it.
Oh gosh. Okay, well.
Okay, hold on. So let's just make this clear. At what point do you like? What do you love about it now? Let's go there first.
Okay, I like that. Like, thank you. Okay, so regards to modeling, it's a creative outlet where I get to express and be myself. It doesn't feel like a job at the end of the day. Like, I know I'm there to market a product, but at the same time, I get to show what I bring to the table. I get to show my Indigenous community and my storyline. Like, that's one thing that I love being about a model is back then, 10 years ago, we had no Indigenous models at all. Like, I had no one to look up to as a little girl, and for me to show my culture in a campaign from someone's a different point of view, that's what really got me started. I'm like, oh, I could actually do something about this. Like, when you become a model, you get a platform whether you like it or not. And that's kind of the way I started expressing and starting to fall in love with modeling. Also, later down the road, I did fall in love with fashion, so that was another big factor during high school. And just to have that creative outlet and to express my culture, and like one thing I always do when I'm on set is I tell them a story. I tell them a story. My mom's a really good storyteller. Like, one thing that I'm so grateful of is I got some pretty good bedtime stories. So I'd always do a connection about the Squamish people, a storyline, so they know, because I'm always usually shooting here in Vancouver, and not a lot of people know our stories, so I try to express it as much as I can. I also do try to sneak in my traditional earrings, or I try to represent in some type of way. But that's honestly how I really fell in love with modeling, is I got to tell our story from a different point of view, just because modeling back then 10 years ago, we weren't really known for it, to be honest. Like, I feel like we've grown so much, especially in the acting community with like Lily Gladstone, like the changes she's making, my goodness. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
That's super interesting. And like, as a person who's behind the camera, I definitely understand. And when you have a model that is willing to show their personality through this medium, or whether it's photography, videography, anything like that, it really makes a difference. So that's probably why you rock at it too, and the Instagram pops too. So like,
thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So but okay, so you go through, we go Gap Kids. When you get invited to Milan, and what's that story there like?
I was 16, I remember, and this was during I was still focusing mainly on hockey, but at the same time I was getting a lot of work. When I was 16, I was tiny. I was super tiny. And I really grew when I was 16. That's kind of when my puberty hit, so I sprouted. So I was getting a lot of work then, and it was really nice because all this money was going to my savings at the time. I was saving for my car, so I was really looking forward to that. And during that time also, like, it was like kind of cool and like, oh, you're a model, that's so cool. But at the same time, I was like, I really wanted a car.
Yeah.
And that's the whole reason why I was like, I'm gonna be the first one to get my car, because my birthday's in January, so I'd be the first person in my grade. January 19th. So I was the second person to get my license after my girlfriend Priya, and I just wanted a car so badly. It was definitely one of my main goals for high school. But going to Milan was it was terrifying. I'm going to be honest with you. I went by myself. My mom really did not want me to go to Europe. She was, honestly, if I was in her shoes, I'd be scared if my baby girl was going to Europe too.
Yeah, totally.
Just because they're very blunt and honest in Europe. I love that about them. But at that time, I was so young. It really took a good chunk of my heart and my confidence at such a young age. It took me a while to love myself again after that trip, just because
Really?
you're used as, you're honestly a mannequin. That's what it feels like, honestly. Like, you're there just to shoot their product, and sometimes it's like unhumane the way they speak to you. And now I just brush that off like it's nothing. Like, I've adapted this shield. Like, when I do casting calls, they're like, oh, if I didn't fit the part, I wasn't what they were looking for, and that's okay. Like, on to the next. But there was some incidents, like in a model house. They're very toxic, to be honest, especially if you think of just a whole bunch of teenage girls in a house. It's kind of a rivalry, not gonna lie. Like, I remember there was these girls from London and these girls from Russia, and I was FaceTiming my mom in the kitchen, and they just started fighting, like full on hands.
Really?
Yeah, because I think one girl stole her clothes, and yeah, someone stole their makeup, and it was over the littlest, stupidest thing. But I was like, I'm not built for this, and I ended up going back home.
Really?
I was so scared. And we had this like model den mom, but she was never in the house. She was always at her boyfriend's across the street. So yeah, and I was just so young, and there was so many girls, like in Europe, they're so big in smoking too, and everyone was smoking in the room. The whole place smelled like cigarettes. None of the girls ate. I definitely was like, no, I'm eating. Especially if I was in Europe, I was eating pastries every day. But yeah, I was definitely super uncomfortable. I don't regret it though, just because I know I wanted to experience that just for the next time I do end up going to Milan. It was humbling for sure, to be honest, but it was definitely a wild experience. I wasn't there long. I think I was there for about 8 days.
How does that experience contrast with working with Supernaturals today, the Indigenous modeling agency?
Okay, so that modeling agency was founded 4 years ago by Jolene Minton and Patrick Shannon, two amazing people.
Who have a standing invite for the podcast, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay, so those people has transformed their communities beyond fathoms. Like Jolene Minton, she works with the Butterfly Project, which it helps with foster Indigenous boys and girls, but she's also started off with Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week, and that's kind of how Supernaturals became Supernaturals. So she ended up making the first Indigenous Fashion Week here in Vancouver, and she was representing any shape, any size, any age. Like, and that's how I wish the model industry was from the start, but unfortunately it's not. It is evolving over time. But she would take people from all of our community throughout Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, in Vancouver, and we started Vancouver Indigenous Fashion Week, and it became just for, like, honestly fun. Like, it was just for us to express and have a good time. And then a couple of years later, it became a huge...
Now it's huge.
It's a huge fashion show, and it's my favorite fashion show still to this day, because it doesn't feel like a fashion show when you're there. It feels like a community gathering. Like, the energy that's given in the room, like, there's music, there's dance, there's food, there's your uncles and aunties, and usually for Fashion Week, you're silent, and you're just watching. It's like all hands on deck. Like, people are going off, and it's
I had so much fun. I didn't go last year, but I went the year before that, and I had so much fun.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Same. I unfortunately didn't make it the last year. I was in Japan with my boyfriend, but the year before that, it was beautiful. It recharges my soul, to be honest, especially to see all the other designers and what they have come for that season. That's when I think my real passion for fashion ended up coming when I started working and meeting Indigenous designers, like, for instance, Pam Baker. I know Sierra talked about her. She's her niece, but she's been a mentor for me since I was 13, to be honest. I started modeling for at a young age, and she's actually helping me look into fashion school right now. I'm Looking to
Awesome.
expand. I'm a little too comfortable right now with myself, so I want to go back to school. So I've checked out most of the fashion schools here in Vancouver, and I'm actually going to Toronto in 2 weeks to check out Ryerson Fashion School, which is a top fashion school in Canada. So
I know last time we spoke, you were also considering going back to school. This is real estate. This is like something different, a different section of your professional career, but you were also thinking about poetry.
Yeah, okay. That happened. I love poetry. One thing, what I did when I was a little girl, I wish I still did, to be honest. Like, I do journal writing, but it's not the same. I lucid dream so much.
Yeah.
And I would wake up and go back to sleep, and my dreams were so vivid. And sometimes I'd get woken up for school, or I'd just wake up and I didn't finish my dream, and I would finish my dreams in poetry. And I would write, and I would finish my dream writing in my journal, and that's how I kind of fell in love with it. And I did that for all the way up to almost high school, and I love to write. I've always loved to write. I love to read poetry. My mom is a beautiful poet. My mom's best friend, Richard Till, I love his poetry. He just did this poem on the Raven, and it's I wish he publishes his poetry because it's so good. But I really want to. I know sometime down the road I will definitely do poetry, and I would love to do some more classes on it. But during that time, it was after I graduated UBC. I was gonna go to Chile. My dad's half Chilean, and we have family there, and I wanted to meet them, but unfortunately the world shut down after the pandemic. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back to school, but I don't think I want to dedicate my 4 years. And it was like, I think I want to do poetry, but there was also real estate, and my dad's like, no, baby girl, do real estate. There's no money in poetry. And I was like, okay, facts, Dad, facts.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, a year and 2 months later, I was a licensed realtor. I've been in the industry for about 6 years now. I worked at a big fancy firm downtown. I worked as a receptionist because I wanted to see if this was the right fit for me before I dedicated and paid for that school. And I paid for that all on my own. And then I became a real estate assistant, and that's when I decided I wanted to follow through with this career, and that's when I went into school. After that, I worked for Peterson downtown for about 4 years, and then after that, I wanted to transfer to more family boutique because I wanted to see both areas on how they work. So now I'm with eXp Realty, and I'm loving it. But I don't have the passion that I used to. And I'm going to be honest with you, I thought I was having a quarter life crisis, but I was speaking to my life coach, and she was saying, she's like, you know what I've realized from you? Every 6 years, you move up as high as you can, and then you say, okay, this chapter is done, and move on. And I think that's how I'm going to be the rest of my life, to be honest. I don't think I'm going to ever be steady with a job and have one job for the rest of my life. I feel like I always need to have a branch out of careers. Like, I've always had 2 or 3 jobs growing up. I definitely got that from my dad, Larry, as well. But I was like, you know what, this chapter's done. I helped out my friends and family as much as I could. I still have that background. And I still help out to this day with my friends if they have any questions. And I do love real estate, but right now that chapter just came to an end for me, and maybe if I want to go back to it, I will down the road. But right now, I think I want to focus more on my family's business, Talaysay Tours, and follow through with my fashion career as well. That's what I'm most passionate about, and it fills my cup. So yeah.
What about, so we'll wrap up fashion here, and okay. I would love to talk about Talaysay Tours, but so we're considering going back to school for fashion. What kind of challenge is that bringing up for you? Are you interested in it because you've been on the model side and now you want to be able to kind of learn that full cycle of fashion kind of thing, or like what is it? Are you looking for expression? Is that what it's kind of?
I want to definitely use expression, but I think another factor of it is I've seen how every designer, they make a collection, and yes, they have sometimes they do have a very close connection with their garments, but when it comes to Indigenous designers, there's a story in every piece, and that's what I love. There's a designer named Yolanda Skelton, and I've worked with her for many, many years, and each of her garments has a story. It has a meaning about an ancestor or a family or a friend, and to wear that is such an honor. And every time I wear one of her garments, she explains the whole background of why she made that piece, and that's to have that connection. that's what really, it hit my heart when she said that. I was such an honor to wear that. Like, I remember I wore this gown. It was for a fashion show, and it was for reconciliation, and it had all these beautiful orange speckles on it, and it was the way she spoke about it, like I almost cried walking on the runway. I was so emotional. But to have that connection to express her story through art, it's definitely another creative outlet that really intrigues me. And when I decided I wanted to go to fashion school, I made that choice about 4 months ago. And I'm going to dedicate my 4 years to it. I think Ryerson's definitely my top pick, but I have KPU for my second. But I already know the collections I want to make. I want to make one about the fur trade, because I would say our Indigenous women were the first ones to ever make actual fur a thing. Like, we showed them the hides, how to hunt, where to find the best hide, how to scalp the best hide. Like, when the colonizationers came over here, like, we taught them the ways of the land and about the fur trade. And that's something I want to definitely promote and show how we used every part of that animal. So I really want to work with leathers. I want to do a collection with cedar. I want to say the storyline about cedar as well. My mom taught me when I was a little girl on how we would harvest our cedar, how we would give the tree thanks, how we would only use as much as our arm's length to make sure that that tree could heal. So I want to do a collection on cedar as well down the road. But baby steps. I got to go to school first. So yeah, I'm really excited to go back to school. I love school. And I'm ready for a challenge, to be honest. I want to be able to work with my hands too. My dad's definitely a craftsmanship, and he's passed on that to me. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think you're just a lifelong learner. And I think just every those 6 years, you're just going to have to learn something completely brand new.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I was like, as soon as this doesn't fit me anymore, I'm like, all right, try what's on to the next. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And like also like Ryerson, Toronto, I get so homesick. I'm really grateful that most of it's online, so I'll get to stay home.
Cool.
Yeah, which
awesome.
I'm excited about.
Cool. Yeah, totally. You need a break or anything? You like that?
No, I'm good.
You're doing good?
Mm-hmm.
Let's jump into let's start with your story growing up. Like what was little Talaysay like?
I had my own voice at a young age. I grew up on the Sechelt Nation. I grew up in a little house. It was white with green trimming. It was my mother, my dad, my grandma, the late Ann Cook, my brother Elias Campo, and my 2 dogs, Lady and Mishka. We lived in a really small house. I think it was 2 bedrooms and an attic. I lived in the attic. I was an attic baby. I had a foam mattress and a big Barney stuffy. We didn't have much, but my parents made it such a healthy and loving home with what they provided. And I'm so thankful for that, because they gave me everything. And both my parents were entrepreneurs. My mom started Talaysay Tours in 2000, and my dad started his contract business, I believe in 1995 or 4. And they were mostly focusing on their businesses. So my brother and my grandma took care of me for a lot of that first few years of my life, and I'm so very grateful for that. And living on the Sunshine Coast is definitely humbling. I would love to one day start my family there as well. But living on the Sechelt Nation, it definitely... What I love the most about the Sechelt Nation is our backyard. Like, yes, we have a great backyard here in Squamish, but there's so much land there. There is so much to explore. And I lived in such a cultural household at such a young age, from like my first breath, the way my mom incorporated the lays of the land and like the medicine and what it provides for us. Like, she would incorporate it in my bedtime stories. There's this one story she would always tell me. It's my favorite. It's about the Douglas fir. It's about how the creator was making our land, and all the trees were lining up to get their pine cones and their names. And the Douglas fir ended up budging the line, and creator noticed, and he was like, "No, Douglas fir, you can't budge." And he sent him to the back of the line. And I don't think when you notice, but when you see Douglas firs, their heads are drooped, and that's him drooping his head in shame. And the creator ended up giving him the most smallest pine cone. And Douglas fir was the most smallest pine cone. So my mom would incorporate bedtime stories like that, and I hope to pass that down. I say them to my niece, Samaya. I want to pass it down to the next generation, and that's like, it's so moving for me, and I'm so happy my mom did that. Like, even, like, I didn't even notice she was doing that at such an age. I just thought it was a bedtime story at the end of the day. Or my mom's like a medicine woman. She's an Indigenous botanist, so I never had any pharmaceutical medicine. Whatever the land had, that's what she provided for me. Like, Devil's Club was very strong in my like living when I was ever sick.
Devil's Club is a very powerful medicine.
It's such a powerful medicine. My God, my dad loves it. So that, like, she would incorporate that in my life. And my dad, honestly, like, he was definitely he was a businessman as well, so he taught me how to use my voice. He taught me about how having such a healthy family is so strong at the end of the day. My grandmother always said this quote to me as well. Do you need it or do you want it? And that less is more. And I always think that in the back of my head. Like, it's helped me throughout my life so much, especially like financing wise. It's a quote that will always be with me. So yeah, living on the Sunshine Coast, I love it so much. I notice when the city gets too much, I always go back. Hopefully I'll be going back in the next 2 weeks. So yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Do you need it or do you want it?
Yeah, I need it. I need it, to be honest. Like, I just feel so grounded when I'm back home. Like, also my grandmother had property in Egmont. It's about an hour drive past Sechelt. And my 2 dogs were my best friends, Lady and Mishka. My dogs taught me how to swim. I remember I would go into the forest for a full day. My grandma would just be doing her thing, gardening, and I would go and play house in the forest with my dogs. And I'd be like a mile in the forest, and my parents would be like, it's okay. Like, I was so connected. Like, that's the one thing too. I've never been afraid of the forest, like, ever. If anything, I feel the most safe. I remember there was this one time I was walking the forest and a cougar literally just walked right past me, and I was 8. And I was with my 2 dogs, and my dogs ended up chasing the cougar. But, like, that's the one thing. I wasn't even scared. I should have been. I really should have been. Yeah, but it was just, like, the ways, like, I knew it wasn't going to hurt me. And luckily I did have my dogs there as well. But my mom showed the land to be such a safe place. And it always is in my heart. Like, even when my anxiety does get high, it's the first place I go usually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, before the gym. It always will be. That is my medicine. That is my ceremony. I've noticed, like, one thing about ceremony as well is, like, you could express it in so many different ways, through forest, through hunting, through medicine, through eating. And the forest is definitely my place to, like, release. And
you know what? Do you know who August Jack Catalano is? Have you heard of him? Well, long story short, elder from here, he kept all these stories, noticed the changes that were going on around Vancouver, and he met a Vancouver archivist, and he told all these stories to this Vancouver archivist, and then he got his daughter, who knew how to write English, to make sure that the story was said correctly, and now it's in a book. If you read that book, he talks about Sďwx a lot. Really? So that's kind of been my latest return to the land here, I would say. But so my question for you there, though, is where did your mom and your parents, like, how did they keep their ceremonial traditions and knowledge in a difficult world, I imagine, growing up for them?
To be honest, my mom, she was a teacher growing up, and she taught at Cap University and in our elementary school on the Sunshine Coast, and she loved it, but she didn't love our school system. Right. So that's when she wanted to have a career change, and that's kind of how Talaysay Tours started, because she wanted to incorporate an Indigenous company that shows the way of the land from our perspective. And my mom, it's who she is as a woman. She's always learning. She's always learning something new. She's always doing workshops, keynote speaking. Like, even I definitely think I got that from my mom too. Is like, I'm always need to learn something new as soon as it gets my attention. And my mom has been such a huge factor in our culture and the way she has shaped me. Like, people call me Little Candy. I'm like, yeah, I know I'm Little Candy. But now when people call me Little Candy, I see it differently. I'm like, I notice I'm fitting my mom's shoes a little bit more. I got a lot of space to fill, but I notice I'm more of my mom every day. So even like the way we talk as well, and including my mom's a big keynote speaker. She's really good with her voice, and she's passed on her tradition to me on keynote speaking. I've been doing some speaking recently, and I've honestly, it's been really soul feeding for me, just to share my thoughts, especially the next generation. So that's been a big factor, and I'm so grateful for my mom to have that connection and to have those stories. And also, like, one thing my mom says is one of your best teachers is who you have around you. Like, my aunties and uncles are such a big factor in my life. I'm always picking their brains when I go back home to the coast.
You've got some wisdom, hey? You got some wisdom around you for sure.
I gotta try.
So how does it feel to have a company named after you then?
You know what? When I was little, I actually like my name, which I feel so bad because it's such a beautiful name, just because I'm not the first Talaysay.
Yeah.
I was actually named after the late Talaysay Jeffries, but when she went to residential school, the Catholics ended up changing her name to Teresa. And she ended up taking care of my mother when she was a young girl. Unfortunately, residential school really affected my grandma, Rose Clark, and she couldn't provide for her family. They put a big scar in her heart, and it was hard to mend. So my Auntie Teresa took my mom and my Uncle John under her wing, and she ended up taking care of them for most of their childhood. And she was a medicine woman. So this has got brought down from 3 generations. So that's this company. I don't see it named just after me. I see it named after my Aunt Teresa.
Gotcha.
She was a big part of my life as well. Like, sometimes if my grandma had to go into the city or my brother was in school, my mom would drop me off at my Aunt Teresa's, and she had a beach house on the Sechelt Nation. It was so beautiful, and I would learn so much from her as well. She had so many Indigenous teas, and she was always giving me tea and teaching me about the teas. So yeah, I wouldn't say it just isn't named after me. This is it's like a story brought down in generations.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. So it sounds like your mom was fed up with the school system, has all this knowledge,
Yeah,
knows how to teach people. So Talaysay Tours was just kind of like a complete conglomeration of everybody's skill set into one company. Would you say that?
honest, yeah. My mom founded in 2000, and I know she wanted to have her own company. She wanted to have her own voice, and she's like, well, I got to start then. So that's kind of how it really started. Talaysay Tours started on the Sunshine Coast. In Porpoise Bay was actually a kayak company first, and then it transformed into walking tours after we moved here to Vancouver, just because the schooling system wasn't the best on the Sunshine Coast.
Gotcha.
And my parents moved their life to the Vancouver for my school, which I'm very grateful for.
Wow. So just what kind of tours can somebody expect to go get from a Talaysay tour?
Okay.
What can they expect from a Talaysay tour?
Okay, so we got 3 tours. So we have our Talking Trees, which is plants and medicine. One thing, that's our most popular tour. One thing about it as well is when the seasons change, the plants change. So it's a completely different tour every season. And then we have our Spoken Treasures. That's the history and stories of Stanley Park, and including Greater Vancouver. We also have our Talking Totems. That is at the totem poles. And to be honest, with our guides, all my guides are mostly my cousins and friends and family. Like, our business runs so well, and our roots are so strong and connected just because a lot of the guides are my cousins, were my mom's cousins. So we learn off each other as much as we can possible. But regards to Talaysay Tours is we say, I think the reason why my mom's so passionate about how we're representing ourselves is a lot of people don't know the factors about Stanley Park, about that was my ancestors' territory until 1988, when Lord Stanley came and colonized us and put 20 Squamish families in a barge and just sent them on their way. And like, also one thing I want to know is Stanley Park is not doing that well. Like, the forest is dying. One thing you can notice is there's this plant called Old Man's Beard. It's what hangs from the plants. It it reminds me of Grinch. Not gonna
I know
lie.
exactly what it is. Yeah.
So when you see that in the forest, it means the forest is healthy. There's none of that there. We have the lunar moths that are taking over right now. Also by Squallow and Rock, the seawall there, it keeps on collapsing because that's not meant to have us. The tides aren't meant to hit that seawall. Like, it's not meant for it. And the land's showing us that, and we keep on rebuilding that seawall, and it just keeps on erupting and eroding. So that's one thing we're really trying to promote as well, is that was our ancestral land. Like, we have a graveyard site there. Every 4 years we'd have 10,000 people come to that land, and we would throw a potlatch. Like, that's our homeland that was taken from us. And we're trying to show them that, like, it's just a huge tourism park right now, and we're really trying to change that. And that's like what's thing I'm most passionate about right now. I've been speaking to the board about the lunar moss. I spoke to them about what trees they were cutting down and what ones they thought were infected, because I ended up doing a tour with my mom. It was about 2 months ago, and there were some trees they cut down that didn't look infected at all. And I was like, who was in charge of cutting down? And also, like, the one thing about the Stanley Park, it's actually rented by the city. They rent, I think they rented it for about over 100 years now. I think it expires in the next 22 years. So they're just not taking care of it. They're just trying to make a name and get as many tourists as possible. And I just,
that's sad.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah,
it's really heartbreaking.
That's super sad. I mean, I think if you go over the bridge today, you'll see that there's if you're driving into Vancouver on the left side, there's a whole like clear cut right now. Is that what they're doing? They're trying to get rid of the moss? They're
trying to get rid of the moss, the lunar moss. And like, one thing I've noticed is, like, all my years living here in Vancouver, driving through Stanley Park and like going over Lionsgate Bridge, I've never seen sunlight hit through the trees before. It's always been such a dense forest. And this is my first time in my whole life I've seen the sun actually shine through. Like, that's how much it has taken advantage of our forests. Like, Point Grey areas, like, I think it took 40% of our forest.
So what can we possibly do? Like, what are some solutions?
To be honest, like, I feel like right now is just there's so much traffic going through Stanley Park. That's one thing that's a big factor, is there's a lot of litter going on in Stanley Park. Yeah, there's still a lot of litter going on that I'm noticing. Also, it's hard, but the barges are a big factor at the moment. As well, we have like all the cruise ships that come in, and like that's one thing that I noticed as well, is when the pandemic hit and all the cruise ships didn't come, we had so many of our killer whales come through the inlet. And I love I love whales. And I was and like that's like one thing noticed too, is like when the pandemic happened, it kind of showed an open eye as well. Like, Stanley Park kind of started restaining itself, but also like the animals were coming back, and they were showing like they were more comfortable. They had their land back. So I'm trying to we have been talking to the park board on what we could do differently, to be honest. But it's
if I could cover any story there, I would really appreciate it, because I'm very passionate about that. And I also I always told my mom, here, you asked me before we started this podcast, like, why did you start this podcast? Well, I'm not really good at much other stuff than talking. That's probably one of them. But the other thing is that my mom asked me to do it, so I just kind of did. It just kind of was kind of the rule. But I also told my mom that I would like a longhouse back on Stanley Park.
Yes.
Or in Sďwx.
Yes.
And so I'm just kind of working towards that. So if I can go lay it down on the park board, which is dissolving, right, or something like that.
It's like, honestly, our forest is cut down now to about 40%. Like, we're having more landslides than ever just because of the traffic and commuting going through. Like, Stanley Park's suffering quite a bit, and a lot of people don't notice it. It's right underneath us. Like, it's right under our noses. Right. So and like the seawall is the biggest factor right now, because it collapses every year, and we're losing more land every year. So
so the seawall just collapses back once more every single year.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if
because of us messing with it.
There's too much traffic going through right now. And like, one thing I can make a connection with is like Machu Picchu in Peru. So they closed that down in February of this year because of the traffic. There's so much traffic going on, and like, if we could do that, so
like the road around Stanley Park adds on additional weight or something like that, or it has some type of impact, and that collapses the seawall back every single year.
There's just so much traffic going through.
Hey? They also removed a bunch of graves for that road, just to let you know. But okay, that's not good. Hi, my relatives. Do you know how to start a podcast? Because at the beginning of starting Our Storytellers, I did not. One of the things that I've learned is how expensive podcasting can be. So Please support us through our Patreon page. If you like what we're doing here, anything helps. You'll get early access to episodes, some exclusive content as well. Again, please support our Patreon page if you can. Thank you so much, Keenan Askaman. Back to our podcast episode.
And I try to get them to come on their tours come on our tours as well. Just a lot of my friends that I'm going to foster care and got taken away from their communities. I've tried to reach out to most of my friends and slowly get them back to the community.
I'm going to start bringing candy gifts. I think that's what I'm going to start doing.
Okay.
You know, I think I'm just going to start, I'm going to start giving my way in there.
Mm-hmm.
I want that private.
Yeah. Hey, all right. Oh, gosh. You got to do a private with my mom, man. Oh, honestly, my mom's with her tours. She does tours, but not as much as she used to. She's mostly on the management side. She's getting close to retiring as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's better. Perfect.
Yeah, no problem. I'm trying to learn as much as I can about the structural roots of the company. But she's honestly been so inspiring for this past year of me taking on and working with Talaysay Tours full time.
What's your role? in Talaysay Tours?
I am the operations management and marketing. I also do the networking and keynote speaking. And I run the apparel line, Love the Land Apparel.
How was your TED Talk?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, if you asked me I was going to do a TED Talk 10 years ago, I'd be like, you're lying. That was, oh man, it was so, I was so grateful to have that opportunity when they asked me. I was like, me? I'm like, are you sure you're talking about the right person?
Yeah.
But speaking about the revitalization about the Northwest Coast art after our potlatch banned over 70 years, that talk was a connection. It was for TED Talks, but it was a connection for me, and it kind of gave me my purpose of what I want to do following forward. And when I spoke to TED Talks, I spoke to about over 150 people. My speech, I think, was about 31 minutes. And I studied that speech 3 months straight. I would read it every morning and every night. And it was called The Doors of Opportunities. The reason why I call it The Doors of Opportunities is it was about two artists, Bill Reed and George Clouthier. They were great craftsmanship. George Clouthier from the Squamish Nation and Bill Reed from Haida Gwaii. After the potlatch ban, not a lot of our artists knew how to carve. It was stripped away, and they were also scared, but they actually retaught themselves by looking at the latest totem poles, and they opened those doors for our community. And there's a picture in the Bill Reed Gallery of the first totem rising in Haida Gwaii, and I made that connection mostly from that photo. That photo did speak 100 words or 1,000 words, but it also opened 1,000 opportunities for our nation. And it kind of also gave me, that's the reason why I wanted to go back to school, and I chose fashion school. Bill Reed went to Ryerson.
Oh, really?
He did, yeah. And I hopefully will be going to Ryerson too next year. But that speech, honestly, it was a milestone in my life, and I'm so grateful for them asking for me. I got asked to come back next year as well. I ended up getting a contract with Bill Reed and Talaysay Tours, which I'm very grateful for.
Amazing.
We're growing for the company, but I was put my blood, sweat, and tears for 4 months straight for that speech, and it's a bittersweet that it's done now, but I'm really grateful that I got to learn more about George Clouthier. That man was an inspiring man. He was a talk show host. He was an artist. He was also a janitor in residential school. And he inspired so many people. But yeah, I was very grateful to do that speech, to be honest. It opened doors of opportunities for myself as well. But yeah, I never thought I wanted to get into keynote speaking because I was so scared at public speaking at such a young age when I was in high school. But I think the reason why is because I wasn't speaking about what I was passionate about. And when my mom wanted me to get more into public speaking, I was terrified. And there was one thing my mother told me. And she says, think of your grandma in the crowd. And when she said that, I was like, enough said. And
yeah.
I don't know why it calmed me down so much.
Yeah.
I still remember when I did that speech, I just thought of my grandma listening to me and think what she would be so proud of me speaking for myself, because she knew I was so scared of public speaking. I would be in class shaking and trembling, speaking in my English class. So I've came a long way, and I'm very grateful how much this year has given to me. I speak at most of our universities, at UBC and Cap University, on Indigenous business as well, on how about real estate, and also Talaysay Tours and the modeling career, and how I've expanded. And it's been very heartwarming. And I feel like after one speech I do, I end up booking another speech right from it. So it's kind of just like a rippling effect at the moment.
That's amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
Is
you.
Is it out right now?
The TED Talk, they recorded it. I need to speak to the director that I was speaking to. And I'll send it your way.
Okay, cool. Because I just want to make sure that if it is out, that we're gonna make sure that it's here too.
Thank you.
Let's jump into this finance sector that we were talking about earlier. So,
all right.
I see money. I see money as an energy. I'll just start with how I view money and that type of stuff. Money is an energy. It's a fuel for this economic game that we play. Whatever. Cool. I went to business school too. I have respect for that energy. But like for me, like my financial knowledge was just from like one book. I read one book. And it was The Wealthy Barber, and I know
the book.
Yeah, and all I do is I just take some money off my paycheck and I put it into the market, and then that's all I do, and that's all I know, right? But you went a little bit further and kind of went into that YouTube section where you could correct me if I'm wrong, of course, but where you learned a lot about credit cards and all that stuff. Tell me that story of how you got interested into it and how the algorithm found you, I guess.
I'm getting giddy just you talking about it.
Yeah.
Gosh, I guess it really started back in my roots, my hometown, coming not from a lot of money. My dad is a really good saver, like a really good saver. He got that from my grandpa, and he taught that and passed that on to me. And when I got my first credit card, I ended up YouTubing what is a credit card, because I didn't know what it was. I was like, oh, money, but I'm like, this isn't actually my money. That's when I learned out what a credit score was, an interest rate, and then that ended up just expanding and opening more doors of opportunities. I also got a scholarship in accounting when I went to UBC. The thing is, though, I was good at accounting, but I hated it. It was just same thing every day, and it didn't fill my cup. But following through with like finance is when I just got into real estate. I was like, you know what? I was like, I've been saving up for a house for so long, but I feel like with this time and the way that the world is expanding and inflating right now, I was like, I need to be more smarter with my money. So I actually started, I call it a budget diary. So I budget my finances and I budget my finances through this budget diaries, and also like my income. So I break this down to a factor is I have my checkings where I hold my finances. I have my savings, so that will be for my bills. I have a second savings for my taxes, and then I have a third savings, and that's for like my fun money spending. And that's how I really started off with, just to make sure that I was always paying the bills, and I had that safety blanket as well. I want, like, God forbid if anything happened, I wanted to make sure that I was financially stable. And then later on down the road, I decided to look into what credit card fitted me best. Just with the inflation of groceries right now, gas, it's getting out of control. So I ended up getting a Cobalt credit card. So this was ranked the best credit card in Canada of 2024. And the reason why I wanted to get this credit card is it helps me with my groceries. So every time you pay for groceries, $1 equals 5 points. Including for streaming like Netflix or like Disney Plus, you get 3 points.
Okay.
And then any travel, transit, Uber, you get 2 points. And about every 100 points is $1, and that actually rounds up every year. So I actually, for those points turn into money, and you could use that for tickets. You could use it for concerts. You could use it for flights. So I transfer mine to airlines, and I make it into my Aero plans. And I actually pay for a round trip flight every year. So me and my boyfriend, we have a rule is we both have the same credit card, and we use those points, and we go on a trip every year with that money spent that we make. And we save up enough points for it with the amount of groceries costs right now. Like,
Yeah.
for me, I spend $800 on groceries a month, and that's just me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easily these days.
Yeah, so it's so that's kind of how I got into the Cobalt credit card, and I love it because when I used to pay for groceries, I would have been like, I'd give them my card, I was like, ugh. Yeah, take my money. But now I'm like, go for it. I want the points. Like, me and my boyfriend are going to Japan next year again, so that's what our trip's used for. So I'm like, yeah, go for it. But that's kind of how I got into the Cobalt credit card. It also has its benefits as well. It has life insurance that you could get. And then for your travels, for all Marriott and Hilton hotels, you get $100 free gift card, and you could also get vamped up to like their exclusive deals and rooms. So it does have its benefits for the Cobalt credit card.
So you see the credit card as like this vehicle. Some people are really scared of credit cards, right? Mm-hmm. Like, so you see a credit card as like, it sounds like it's kind of like a motivating factor to ensure that you're spending money on groceries, but you're also kind of making something off that money that you're spending no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? So first of all, I'm going to need a referral code for you after this. I just so happen to be randomly shopping for a credit card right now, which is perfect. And then, like, what do you say to people who are a little bit scared of those credit cards, though? Even me, I'm a little bit scared of credit cards.
Oh, credit cards used to terrify me, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was not going to lie, before I started budgeting about 3.5 years ago, correctly. And that's kind of when I wanted to invest in, like, okay, what's the best way I can invest this money to myself? And one way was the credit card to make my money back. Also, I do love to travel. So to change that and getting my flight paid for free. And I just got to think about like food in the hotel. And also they have that connection with those main resorts, Hilton and the Marriott, that are worldwide international. So it definitely has its benefits following through with that. But the Amex credit card, sorry, I lost my train of thought.
What do you say to people that are a little bit scared of it?
A little bit scared of it?
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like you have to sometimes take that risk.
Yeah.
I would say, like, a lot of people in our age, I feel like we're not taking risks like how like our parents used to be honest. And like I took that financial risk. I have 2 credit cards, and I do most of my credit card for all my spending for groceries, but my other credit card, I use it for like my insurance. And I'm just trying to build this credit score up, because the way, if you think about it, at the end of the day, we all want a home to live in, a home to call our own. And like you need that credit score, and to have that, like I only usually spend on my Amex card now, and then I'll just pay it back every month. And I'm building that credit score, and I learned a credit score when I was 16 from YouTube. And I think I'm like a 740 right now for my credit score.
Yeah.
Skszwx. So, and I was like, I'm happy to spend this money because I'm showing the banks that I'm safe with my money, and I'm financially accurate, and I know what to do with my money. So at the end of the day, I know it's benefiting me.
Right.
And that's the reason why I never was ever scared of a credit card. I was definitely, the first time I got my card, though, I was like, oh my God, this isn't my money. And I was so scared when I spent it. But yeah, I have some girlfriends, and they went buck wild in their uni years, and they're like, I shouldn't have done that, because like some people want to settle down, like get an apartment, and so they need co-signers right now just because their credit score wasn't the best. So,
Right.
Yeah, I want to change that.
Totally. Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely went through the buck wild credit card poor student game for sure, but I never missed a payment, which is great. But one thing that you mentioned, though, is you talked about transferring your points. Can you explain what that is? Because most people don't know what transferring your points mean, and even I just learned about this.
Okay, so this is for all Canadians, Aeroplans, Air Canada. So first of all, first thing you're going to do, download the app, Air Canada Aeroplans. Because those airlines branch out to mostly all the airlines we have in YVR, and those points can transfer over. So what you could do is, when you have that app for your Amex app, you'll download your online banking app. And when you reach your 5,000 points, that's what I usually reach at every end of the year, I transfer those into my Aeroplans, and that changes into money. You have like your own credit. And that could you could branch that out for any airlines. So that's how it's honestly a click of a button on the app. You just transfer it through your Amex Canada. Another thing about Aeroplans as well is you can connect your Aeroplans app to Uber Eats. You can connect it to Starbucks and the Chevron gas station, and that actually doubles your points as well. So I have that connected to my app. So I'm actually also making money off those other providers.
So so essentially the credit card game is learn the benefits and apply them.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't be afraid to spend your money. Just make sure you pay it off.
Make sure you have the money to spend too, for sure. How do you break down your budget though? Like, because budgeting is actually a habit.
Yeah.
I feel like most people don't say that. People say, oh, like, make a budget.
Yeah.
But making a budget is like only the first step. The second step is stick within that budget.
Exactly.
And then also follow up with that budget, because everyone kind of sets a budget and then tries not to change it. I'm constantly changing my budget a little bit depending on what my goals are.
Yeah.
Right? So how do you set your budget?
Great question. Okay, so one thing I do is there's a numbers app on the iPhone. So that's what I use because it connects and I have it synced to my Mac laptop.
Yeah.
So anytime a paycheck comes in, I just add it in. Anytime I do a payment, depends on what you like, but you could either map out your budgeting for the whole month. Or I do mine weekly. And I break it down to like my Ubers, to like eating out, to my shopping, to like my Crave account, Disney account. And I have it mapped up for the whole month. I have every payment I've ever made, to even like coffee. And I break that down like when I went to Ottawa last month, I spent like $300 on Uber. I was like, oh my God, I haven't Ubered since. But it just shows because like sometimes you don't know where your money went. And it's like, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I spent so much money on that. So it has definitely saved me a lot because you're more conscious with your spending, especially like growing up with my grandma's, like, do you need it or do you want it? When I shop, I always think that in my head. I hear that voice
I'm going to be
head.
hearing your grandma forever too. But I'll always be like, I want it.
Yes.
And now I need it.
Yeah, I was definitely an impulsive shopper a couple times down the road. But yeah, so that was like one thing I was like, I really thought about. Like, for instance, I bought a couch yesterday. I was like, you know what? I was like, this couch is so expensive. Like, this is ridiculous. I shouldn't be spending this much money on a couch. Like, I should just keep this in my savings. But the way I see it is I want to have my home feel like I want my home for all my friends and family to connect with. Like, I want a couch that we could all circle around and that's our sharing circle. I was like, I'm going to have the best memories on this couch. Like, this is investing in like my personal life. And
what matters to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, there's also like smart spending as well. So... And I love being hostess with the mostest. I love having all my friends and family over. So I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to have some really good memories on this couch with my girlfriends and my friends. So I was like, you know, I'm going to do it. But like, that's the thing too, is like, what is the outcome and purpose with this spending? Like, how does it benefit me in the following forward? So that's like the budgeting, the daily budgeting has helped me out, and it just shows where my money goes. And I have that now in the back of my head, and my savings, like regards to my savings, when I broke it down, like I invest. So I have a TFSA account. So that's a tax-free savings account. That's another savings account I have. And that is making money over the year. Every paycheck, I put $100 in that paycheck or into that savings account. And hopefully I'm going to do that for a car down the way, or if God forbid, if any emergency happens. I also have a first home savings account. So that also goes in $100 each paycheck.
Okay. We're going to have to talk about this one because it came out last year, right? I knew it came out. I didn't apply for it, but like when I was doing my taxes this year, I was taking a look at it. Can you explain what it does?
Yes, absolutely. After the sip of water.
This is great, by the way, and I'm gonna ask you a question after this.
I gotta take a quick look at this book because I want to make sure I say the right stuff. But what's
up? Yeah. No, I mean, do you think that us as Indigenous people, do you think that we talk about finances enough to each other?
No. Not at all. I've never talked about finances with my cousins unless I'm the one speaking about it.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes I bite their ear off and they don't want to hear it, but it's just so important because I feel
we need to normalize it so we can take care of our families.
Exactly.
Like the cost of not doing it is worse than the pain of doing it.
Yeah. It's also like kind of like money, talking about money, it's kind of like tough topic
Yeah.
for some people, and I completely understand about it as well. It's like I never like
So much trauma.
Yeah,
there, too.
exactly.
Yeah, totally.
And like that changed your full lifestyle. And just over the years, from what the life I lived into the household my family have built, from where we were to where we are now, like I am so grateful. My parents never worked a 9 to 5. My mom sometimes works 10-hour days. Like I remember when I was young, she was doing emails at like 4 a.m. and going to bed at 10 p.m. and doing network like visual tours online. Like she is such a hardworking woman. And my dad running his company, he built most of the houses here in the Squamish Nation. My dad.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And that's one thing I loved about my dad too, is like he taught me the foundation of a house, and I put those teachings into my real estate. Like I know X, Y, and Z. I know where to pick the lot, the landscaping to the format, how long it takes to build a house, the material cost and use. And I use that in my everyday teaching. Like,
listen, we need to be friends forever. I'm sorry,
okay.
I have to say that. Okay.
I would love that.
Okay, cool. Keep going though. Keep going.
But yeah, so following forward with that. So wait, let me take a quick look.
Yeah.
This is my little book.
Buy your first home.
Okay. A second. Okay. So it's a FHSA, so first home savings account. So actually, the government, we ended up getting the first home savings account, and that was when you buy your first home in Canada, you would actually get a discount. So they actually took that away from us this year in February.
Right.
They took it away and they vetoed it. And not gonna lie, like all realtors were choked. I was choked because like that was one step me closer to getting a house. So that's why I wanted to start investing my money into this savings account, because this doesn't tax you on your materials or labor. For when you want to take that money out of your savings, you don't get taxed on your house, because house taxes are so high.
Right.
That's why sometimes houses, you see a house and a foundation built, but it's done built because they can't afford the house taxes. They never put that into the contract. They're like, they just think you should know that. And a lot of people, like, the houses get backfired and they have to wait because they can't pay their taxes for this houses. So this savings account makes sure when you use that money that it is tax-free money and you don't get taxed on that household.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so taxes are a big part of homes. So that's one thing that I want to focus on. Like, I started saving for a house about 8 years ago. Also, I put my name down for the nation when I turned 18. I know I would never be able to get a house. My dad is 74 and he still never got his house. He ended up saving up his money. He saved up half his money for a house, and then he ended up getting a loan from the bank. He was a smart man. He got that from my grandpa from saving, because he knows the mortgage interest rates are going up. Like, they're skyrocketing every year. They always say it's going to drop in February. Never does. And that's my goal also. That's why I've been trying to build this credit score for myself, is I'm saving up for half of my house, and then I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to see what's best loan I could get and what best interest rate I could get. So yeah, crossing my fingers.
Is it better to go to the bank or is it better to go to a mortgage broker? I've been told mortgage brokers are better because they cross compare the rate per bank.
Only benefit that we have is that I'm with the Bank of Montreal, and it's on banned land.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and we have a connection with the nation through our CHBC housing.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
so,
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so that's the reason why I decided to follow through with a loan. It also helps with my credit score as well. For instance, like my cousin from the Sunshine Coast, he ended up buying a house, and his mortgage has gone up over by 20%, and he always has to move out now because it just keeps on rising, just because inflation's literally, he's like in financial failure, and I feel for him because he just had a son not too long ago.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah, so it's just like mortgage it's honestly it's a risk. It's a risk factor for sure. And for me, knowing to get a loan from the bank and I just have to pay this every monthly, I could do that if I save my money right.
Yeah.
I feel more comfortable going with that way. And I've known I've been wanting to do this for the past like 4 years now. So yeah, but hopefully soon. I already have my blueprints of my house and everything. I know what my house is gonna look like.
Really?
Yeah.
What's your blueprint looking like?
It's so it's called a laneway home, but they're actually quite big in Europe. So it's not a tiny home, it's a bit bigger, but it's a 2-story house. I actually made it 3 because my 3rd story, it's gonna be tiny, but it's gonna be my office at the top.
Nice.
So I could look over to the North Shore Mountains.
Little skylight? Or?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So much lights. I love plants.
I love property and I love homes. So
yeah,
we could talk about this all day. Okay?
Yeah. So that's like my whole. I already have my whole plan of like what my garden's gonna look like, my house, my room. Yeah, so it's already all planned out. I've had that planned for quite some time now. So hopefully in a couple more years I'll have a home to call my own.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be so fun.
Oh gosh, I can't wait to have it. I've been waiting so long.
Yeah. So, okay, you're really well versed in all this.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that you do is that you actually have multiple income streams, and one of those income streams is your new skincare product. Right?
Yeah, that's my new baby.
Okay, I'm gonna try to say it, but I actually don't know if I've ever said it correctly. But it's Theta.
Close.
Close.
Theta X Nena.
Neta.
Yeah, Nena.
Mm-hmm. I can't even read my own writing, but that's okay. Yeah, keep going.
All right, so Theta X Neta. So the reason I chose the name Theta, it's my mom's middle name. I was like, Mom, you named a company after me. I'm gonna name one after you, and it's actually those traditions passed down to me. I incorporated in my skincare. So that skincare collection I made that hit the stores 2 months ago, and it's called Medicine Woman Collection. I dedicate it to my Chesha, my mother. That's made from local sage from our community, West Coast cedar, and peptides and vitamin C. So it's as natural as it could be. It's so natural you could eat it.
Yeah, totally.
So I was working on that for 18 months. I think I made 41 tests until I finally got that serum. And the reason why I wanted to make that serum is I'm a big believer you are with your eat, especially with skincare as well. I was more into skincare than I ever was with makeup. So when I started getting to skincare and starting learning more about it, I fell in love with skincare because I see skincare as a ritual. Like when I settle down for the night, that skincare is me decompressing for the day and just thinking through of my day and how it went. That's when I want it. It's almost ceremony to me as well. And that's why I put those components into my serum. So I came out with the serum, and it also comes with a dual-headed facial roller. It's a facial tool. I've been using this for about 7 years now. It's like to sculpt your face for those indigenous cheekbones. So I incorporated that in my collection, and it's been doing very well. I'm very happy to share it with my friends and family just because I wanted to have something that was close to my heart and close to my roots. And that's how the serum came evolve. And it's honestly, I'm so proud of how it is right now, and like the great outcome I've got from it. We actually just got an award, or got nominated for an award for the London Pure Beauty Award. So I may
congratulations.
Thank you. I may be flying to London next month, crossing fingers and toes. But that skincare line, honestly, everything went right of how it should be, and I'm happy to share it. And
Creator provides.
Yeah, creator provides. Enough said. Like that skincare, I'm still surprised I have a skincare line. When you say it out loud, I was like, yeah, I did do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many works, blood, sweat, and tears for that.
Let's talk about it though. Like,
okay.
So those 67 tests?
41.
41 tests. Sorry. So those 41 tests. What's going on? Like, are you like? It's all made with natural stuff, so it probably didn't hurt too bad.
No.
Right?
No.
You were just like trying to get that perfect experience, I guess.
I wanted to make a skincare that could work for all skin types, for people who had high pigmentation, to acne scarring, to like say if they're more sensitive to skin. So I wanted to make sure that everyone could use the skincare in the dose they use. Like if you use more, the more dewier hydrating effect it gives. Peptides is for hydration. Vitamin C helps you layer and like clear your skin tone. And then cedar, it actually detoxes your skin. So that's the one, the main component why I wanted cedar. And the sage, it just gives it such a rich smell. Like my skincare, it's a musk. Some of my girlfriends wear it as perfume, which I love. Yeah. And that's kind of what I wanted to give. I love a nice musk smell. Best way I could describe it is when you're in the forest and you smell wet cedar. That's what my skincare smells like.
No way.
Yeah. And I love wet cedar. So me testing and trialing it, like it was so hard for me to find West Coast cedar essential oil. That medicine, like I went to so many reses to see if I wanted to incorporate it from a community. And I ended up finding someone in the Lillooet Nation, but to find that ointment, it took me about, I think, 3.5 months. I was like knocking on people's door. I was driving everywhere throughout Vancouver.
Really?
Yeah, it took some time, but yeah, and
How do you learn all this stuff? Is it just from like you using it and just kind of knowing, like using other products and knowing what you're looking for?
I feel
Or are you like researching like the science behind it? Like what's that?
Oh, there was a lot of research involved, like hours and hours, probably over 100 hours of research involved, just starting from when I got into skincare, when I first started going to Shoppers Drug Mart, and I was getting like just like the normal lotion and face serums. My cousin Melita got me into skincare as well. I remember there was this face mask and it used to burn our face, but she's like, it works. And I'm like, okay, it must work then. But apparently back then, now I look at it, it was so bad for our skin.
Yeah.
But like, that's kind of how I got incorporated, because I want to make sure I want to take care of myself as much as I can. Other reason why is my great grandma Margaret, she ended up taking care of this gentleman. He was a man from England, and he got scurvies, and he ended up jumping the barge because he was going to die on that boat, and he ended up swimming to shore on the to the Sechelt nation, and she ended up taking care of him and brought him back to health, and they ended up having 6 babies. And this man, he was in his early 20s, and he had a full head of white hair.
Wow.
And he aged quite fast, to be honest. And so all my women in my family, from my mom to my grandma, we age quite fast. Like our hair, like I have lots of white hair, but I've yanked it out all my years, and I promised myself I would stop this year. My mom started getting white hair in her 20s. I started getting white hair when I was 18.
Wow.
Yeah. I promised myself I would stop pulling it out, and I have, but it's sometimes really hard. But I wanted to make sure I wanted to keep my youth as much as possible, so that's how I got into skincare. I was like, I want to make sure I can look at my youngest and fullest, even if my hair shows it. So, but then again, I was like, my mom's like, you just look wise as ever. I was like, okay, Mom, all right, I'll take it, thank you. I was like, I still gotta learn some wisdom, but thanks. But yeah, that's like how I really got into skincare and like following forward and my research. I've been using natural skincare for the past, I would say, 10 years now, and I never had skincare that had my roots and my benefits, and that's how I wanted to start it off with. So I ended up doing a lot of research on Korean skincare as well, because they use a lot of their plants and medicines as well, and I wanted to see it on like what was the science and how they broke it down and how we could restore as much nutrients as possible, the way they broke down those materials. So that's kind of how it really all started. Also, the provider, the dermatologist and scientist that I've been speaking to, she actually worked for Claude, which is a huge skincare brand in Paris. So she taught me so much that there was about what they don't teach us on the other side of the shelves. So that was a big component as well for my learning. But a lot of YouTube went into it, and a lot of definitely research as well on my note.
So you essentially just developed a serum that for yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then shared it.
I really wanted to make it for myself, but also share it with my friends and family. I remember they wanted me to send it all out to influencers, and I did send it to influencers, but it was mostly Indigenous influencers that are my friends. But I just wanted to share it with my community, be like, hey, look what I scooped up.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
so I'm really happy on how it's doing right now, and I've heard so many good results so far, and that's what warms my heart.
Do you have do any of your guy friends or use it?
All the time. My boyfriend uses it every day.
Really?
Yeah. I gave it to actually a couple of my friends when I sent them out as like influencer packages. About a quarter of them were guys, and they love it. And it's also that musk cedar smell, so I think that's what they love most. But my goal is I wanted you to look as dewy and hydrated as possible without that grease aspect.
Okay.
And that's what the peptides did. And the vitamin C gives you like glow. It actually brings out your natural color in your face. I
am learning so much today. I'm so lucky today. Yeah. Okay.
One thing I learned in skincare is less is more. I remember when I was younger, I had like a 12-step skincare routine, and now I have like 4. So, and it's made such a big change in my skin. So definitely easier when it comes to traveling as well.
Simpler the better.
Yeah, really.
Is there anything that you wanted to talk about finance-wise that we missed?
Finance-wise. Oh, actually one last thing I think I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is a real estate hack.
Okay, yes.
I'm going to spill the beans. Okay, so this is actually for, say that you are a carver, a beater, a podcaster, and you do your taxes every year. So the reason why I want to speak about this is called the business use of home expenses. So you would actually credit this for your taxes every year in February, and you would speak to your accountant. It's called the Taxfolio S4 F2 C2 form. And what this does is if you have a license or if you sell a product, you actually could use this for your taxes, for your expenses, for your rent, for any electrical problems that you have going on. You could use it for your heating, your home insurance, any clean materials, and you could actually get that written off in your taxes. I know someone who saved $7,000 on their taxes from their business, and she's just a beater.
Right.
Well, not just beater. She makes beautiful work, but yeah, and like she's just a beater full time, and she saves so much money, and she put that for her rent, and she used that money for resources for her family. And I learned that on my own. I was just looking at the CRA account, and like this is one thing they didn't teach me this in accounting school. They taught me how to be accountant, but they didn't know how to use my resources. So I actually found that out all on my own. That's one thing I really wanted to speak about is like I feel like also in Vancouver it's so expensive. Everyone has a hustle job. So to use that to save money and for yourself, like that's a big difference. That's $700,000, and you would use that for yourself for your taxes. So that's one thing that I wanted to learn, because I remember about 4 years ago.
You hate taxes, eh?
I hate taxes. I actually ranted to my boyfriend just because I was like, God damn, I was like, you take my land and now my money too. And I was like, I was livid. I like my taxes this year, I had 8 meetings with my accountant. And like I have a background in accounting too.
Yeah.
And it took, eight meetings, pardon me. And it's the most meetings I ever had. And accountants aren't cheap. And this was because I was negotiating everything.
Yeah.
I was like,
you were like, explain this to me.
Exactly.
Explain this to me.
And I'm like, why are we filing this form when we could file this form? And then also because like I have my skincare line, like also I do a little bit of ambassadorship at home. I have my modeling, and I was just seeing what I could give for my taxes and what I could give to see if I could get my money back. So that was one form I learned. The other one is called the T777 form. So that is your temporary flat rate method. So this is you work with a business or an organization. So say like for me, I work with eXp Realty, but I work a hybrid job. So I work 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. I could write off any electrical, like I wrote off my laptop this year. I bought a new laptop and I got my laptop right off because I work from home. Any office pay work. Also, if you buy a new desk, you could write that off.
Do you know how much I work from home? Keep going.
Yeah, so that's one form that I also looked into. And one other thing that you could also do is, so every day that you work, you could file $2 for every work day you work from home. So if you work 5 days a week, say a full-time job from home, you could save about $520 you'll get back in your taxes. Mm-hmm. Mic drop, and that's it. That's all I got about the taxes. So that's definitely something.
Do you know how much I work from home?
I will send you the tax forms next year.
That's painful.
Pays you back in the end in the taxes.
And then like I saw my taxes and I was like, I hate this place. I was like, I feel like I don't even get anything from this. Like, but whatever. That was like my own little diva moment. And then just if I would have known that like literally 5 weeks ago. Just kidding.
Honestly, the way I got into it was 4 years ago. I got a lot of modeling work done, and I owed the government so much money. And I remember I cried to my mom because I was like, I can't pay this off. Because that's the one thing is you got to pay it off 30 days after the I think our taxes were due last month on the 30th for the payment. And I was like, I don't have that money in my savings. So that's why I also started a savings account for my taxes every year.
What percentage of your income do you take and shove into that taxes?
I'm not gonna lie, I just put in 100 every paycheck,
and
then I just the money that I have left over, and it's always saved me. I also, because I do my monthly daily budgeting, I know how much I make, so if I go over, I have that to keep in mind as well.
Gotcha.
But yeah, 4 years ago I owed them $7,000, almost 8.
Okay.
Yeah, and it took a big chunk of me.
that would have crushed me. That would have crushed me. And
also just like modeling at that time, like that's called like a personal job, so you actually get charged more for when you do like modeling and acting. Yeah, so that's why it costs so much
ridiculous.
For my taxes. Yeah.
True. Anyways, you take the land, you kill the forests, you kill Stanley Park, and on top of that, taxes. Yeah. But if there's a lesson in here, is that we all have to be as relentless with the accountant. You know what I mean? Being like, where's this, what is this? Like, you make sure we understand everything.
Exactly.
Knowledge is power.
Yes, knowledge is power, 100%. Yeah, don't be scared to ask questions. By all means, if anyone ever asks questions, DM me. I will be happy to answer them.
Okay. Ceremony.
Ooh, okay.
What does that mean to you? What does that word mean to you?
Ceremony is, honestly, I feel like sometimes when the days you do feel lost, ceremony is the thing that gets you back on your feet. Ceremony could be expressed in so many ways. It's like, as I said, like, I use the forest for my ceremony. It's grounding. You could use it through hunting, eating, medicine, dance, even just being around your aunties and uncles. Ceremony is a big factor just because our ancestors weren't able to express it not too long ago. And I always say that we are our future ancestors and we need to act accordingly. I always have that factor. I say the youth are always watching us even when you don't think it. Like when I became an auntie 4 years ago, I was like, I gotta change my ways. I was so proud of, like, I love Samaya so much. I see her every Tuesday, and I was like, I gotta show her what I have so she could see what I do, and hopefully, like, I want her to look up to me, and I know she does. And like, that's really how ceremony got into me. Like, that, my thoughts on ceremony. It's really how you express it. Everyone's has their different way of expressing, but it's all about what you're comfortable with, and what you take day by day. But ceremony is definitely a big factor. I was actually dancing at quite a young age with my mom in the Sechelt Nation. It's kind of funny, but I used to be afraid of our masks in the lawn house when I was very, very young. And my mom's like, okay, we need to fix this. Mm-hmm. So when I was sick, she put me in our dance in the Sechelt Nation. Mm-hmm. And I just remember I was always in my lawn black skirt and a black shirt, and we would do our dancing and ceremonies, and I ended up not being afraid of the masks anymore, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And also being around my uncles and my aunties and my cousins and the beat of the drum. Like, that's one thing, is the beat of the drum. I feel like my heart sinks to the beat of the drum and it settles me down. It also it makes me forget about whatever else is going on in my life. One thing that I want to do this year is be more close to my my community on the Sechelt Nation. I do miss our lawn house. So, but yeah, that's ceremony for me.
What do you say to like, I guess we probably have mutual connections and groups everywhere, probably, but like, I find that another part of the reason, I'm just answering the same question 100 times over again, but another part of the reason why we started the pod is because I was talking to other Indigenous youth, and I grew up in a very ceremonial family. Like, we're a Sundance family. And when I would talk about ceremony or ask where it was it felt a little bit uncomfortable for the other person. I was like, that's a little bit interesting. And then I realized, like, a person that listens to this podcast, the main people that love it are the people that, like, unfortunately have been disconnected from ceremony and are looking to get back. And this is a really accessible way to access it. What do you say to those people who are a little bit scared to, experience their Indigenous side or their indigeneity?
Beautiful question. I would say, like, to be honest, whatever's most comfortable with you.
Yeah.
To be honest, I know a couple of my friends that went into foster care and got stripped from our community, and they didn't really know what our culture was. They lost it, and it's always just trying to, if you have any family or friends, don't be afraid to come back in your community and just come say hi, because that's honestly talk to one auntie and uncle and it'll expand like so fast. Another way is, like, learn on your own time. Like, one thing about it is, like, our parents, they didn't have the same education person. There was no podcasting. Like, the way of learning as much as you can through, like, the internet we have as well, through, like, YouTube right now, and, like, the web, like, the internet, you could learn so much about our culture just from there. Just for a start, to be honest. And then when you do feel comfortable, try to come back to your community. Like, we don't bite.
Some people do. Yeah. No, just kidding. But that's amazing. Uh-huh. What do you want our generation to start actioning today? If you could tell me to go do something for the people, what would you tell me to do?
Take more risks. Definitely take more risks. I feel like our generation isn't taking as much risks as they should. And that's one thing I really want to focus on. I felt like I became a risk taker about 4 years ago. I learned the word no too. I used to be a yes man, and even if it didn't benefit me and my morals, in my ambitions, I'd be like, oh, they want me there, I should do it. But I definitely think I've been taking more risks, and that's been opening more doors of opportunity for me. Like, for instance, the public speaking, absolutely terrified. Did not want to do it. And I've expanded so much more, and now I'm going back to school because of it. And I'm deciding, like, hey, I'm also going to quit my job, and I'm going to start a new career, and that's a risk to take. And I'm going to be learning and growing and probably making more mistakes along the way. But hey, that's the humble, and that's the part of life. Life's beautiful, and it's too short.
Wow.
Yeah.
What, I think like one of the things that I really admire in you, Talaysay, is that you have a very, very good balance of the Indigenous and the colonial world, per se.
Thank you.
How can we, what would you say to us, like our generation, of how we can manage that balance a little bit better?
I feel like it's honestly our voices. I feel like, I'm going to speak about the school system. Our Indigenous studies was definitely mistreated, neglected. They didn't say our true stories and our factor. They talk about the railway pretty much in the fur trade, but they don't actually talk about what actually happened to Turtle Island and what the colonizers and what we did to our people. Like, yes, we know about our residential schools, but I feel like we have came such a long way from genocide, and now that we are growing than ever, I feel like we've got the biggest voice that we've ever had, like mentally, physically, like sharing our stories, like how I share mine when I'm modeling. I always do a story. I always try to make a positive aspect, and I try to, like, even my mom's bedtime stories, I say it to all my friends and families, like, take it with a grain of salt. Honestly, express it, what makes you feel the most comfortable, what your passion, whatever it could be for you, dance, art, singing. Yeah.
Totally. Is there anything else you want to speak about? We've been going for like 2 hours, you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
There's a time warp in here.
Okay. It is a time warp. I think I got everything.
You think you got everything?
Yeah, I think I got everything, man.
Talaysay, I'm so grateful. I appreciate the gifts. I appreciate the knowledge you shared with us.
Thank you.
And this podcast is also your podcast. Like, Our Storytellers, like, I really don't see myself as a host. So if there's anything you ever want to say, you have an open invite to come back on. You can just use it as a platform. This is your equipment too. So I appreciate it, and thank you so much. All my relations.
Thank you. I'm so grateful. I would definitely love to come back and talk more about the finances. I think there's like one thing I want to say. If anyone wants to get my skincare, you get it at nenaskincare.com. Also, our Love the Land Apparel spring summer collection just dropped at lovethelandapparel.ca.
Amazing. Do you want to dedicate this podcast to anyone?
My mom, that woman gave me life. She's taught me so much. Definitely my mom and my grandma, the late Ann Cook. I call her Cookie.
Shout out to the matriarchs.
Yeah. Sweet.
Good work.
Oh my God.
You did it.
Hey,
good job.
That was awesome.
Hi, my relatives. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Talaysay, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was such a gift and an honor to be able to sit back and learn from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe onto our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify. Spotify has comments too. Do not be afraid to comment there. We're also on Apple Podcasts, so make sure you share this wherever you're going. Thank you so much to all of our new listeners as well too. You know, we appreciate you. The recent growth has been so humbling, and it's really driven the team to take a look at how we can possibly bring better value to the stories that we get the privilege to share on behalf of others. And we don't take this job lightly. So thank you so much, Keenan Askaman. I'm so grateful for you. Love, Riel. All my relations.